My boyfriend refused to acknowledge our relationship, so I left. He didn't care until he saw me holding hands with someone else. It was the third year of my secret relationship with Gabriel, and he still refused to make it public. At a party, someone made a joke. Gabriel, Camila is amazing. Haven't you fallen for her after all this time? I watched him toast with someone else, a spark of hope lighting up in my chest. He leaned back, unconcerned. Don't be ridiculous. Camila and I are just friends. My heart sank. Yes, just friends. I murmured, trying to sound indifferent. The atmosphere grew tense. Someone intervened to ease the tension. Well, that's great news. A friend of mine has a huge crush on Camila.
He turned to me.
Camila, do you want me to give him your number? Before I could answer, Gabriel put down his glass and stepped toward me. Casually draping an arm over my shoulders, he shot a sharp look at the guy. Don't even think about it. She's my friend. A very good one, actually. Keep your disgusting friends away from her. I shrugged his arm off. Actually, go ahead and give me the number. I'm always open to meeting new people. The guy quickly handed me a business card and I saved it on my phone. When I looked up, I met Gabriel's eyes. There was a glint of amusement mixed with something I couldn't quite decipher. A dull ache spread through my chest. I started to step away, but Gabriel stopped me, pulling out his phone. Camila, smile for the camera. The photo captured our faces. He looked handsome, wearing his usual smug expression. I looked pale and hollow-eyed. He posted it instantly with the caption, "Friendship goals." Something inside me broke. 3 years of a secret relationship, known only to the two of us. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. Staring at my reflection, I grabbed my phone, opened the post, and commented, "Friendship goals." Then I left. Gabriel called, asking where I was. I told him I wasn't feeling well. He accepted it without pushing, telling me to rest. But I didn't go back to my apartment. I went to his place. Sometimes I spent the night there. Yet there wasn't a single trace of me in the living room or anywhere else. My things were kept hidden in the ensuite bathroom. He didn't want anyone to know. I prefer to keep my private life private. Private?
He called it that.
If you can accept this, we can be together. A perfect excuse. And even without it, I probably wouldn't have been able to say no. I owed a lot to his family and to him. But now I understood. It wasn't his private life he wanted to keep hidden. It was me. I used my key to enter and walked toward the bedroom. But in the living room, I saw it. A huge, strawberry-colored teddy bear on the couch. It wasn't mine. And it definitely wasn't Gabriel's. Suddenly, that Facebook post from earlier made sense. It was for another girl. Surprisingly, it didn't hurt as much as I expected. I went to the bedroom and gathered my things. Then I took off the necklace I had worn for 3 years. The pendant was a ring, Gabriel's gift. I had never worn it in public. It was time to leave it behind. On my 3rd day in Barcelona, Gabriel called. I didn't answer. 30 minutes later, I received a message. I'll keep the ring for 3 days.
I knew what that meant.
Sometimes we argued, and he would just disappear. In the end, I always gave in. We had been together since university. I followed him from Seville to Madrid. I had never thought of giving up before, but now I was exhausted. I replied, "Don't bother. Throw it away." He didn't respond. I stared at the message for a moment and then blocked his number. Gabriel poured himself another drink and downed it in one gulp. He heard someone mention my name. My friend is completely in love with her. He called me last night.
Couldn't stop talking about her.
Gabriel slammed his glass onto the table. She won't be interested. Tell him not to waste his time. And how do you know? Gabriel slid his finger across his phone screen. Camila is already in love with someone. Even if Brad Pitt himself showed up, it wouldn't matter. He grabbed his pack of cigarettes and stepped outside, leaving the noise of the party behind. Lighting one up, he glanced at his phone again. The last message was still there. Throw it away. He took a long drag. The smoke didn't help ease the irritation building inside him. He typed quickly. Already did. But the message didn't go through. A red exclamation mark appeared on the screen.
Blocked.
Gabriel froze for a moment. Then he let out a bitter laugh. Let's see how long you can keep this up. My days in Barcelona flew by. On the eve of my flight back to Madrid, I ran into an old high school friend, Daniel. He walked into the bar, impeccable in a dark suit. My friends nudged me, giggling. I blushed, maybe from the alcohol. Daniel met my gaze. "Camila, it's been a while."
Hey.
I stammered, standing up. He had barely joined us when one of my friends whispered, "I just posted on Instagram that you were in Barcelona," and Daniel liked it instantly. He lives abroad now. He rarely comes back. He totally came for you. I sneaked a glance at him. He was talking to someone else. His sharp, striking features had always drawn attention, and now, even more so. I looked away. He said he was just passing through. Coincidence? I didn't believe it. But when the night ended, Daniel offered to drive me back to my hotel before I could refuse. My friends disappeared. He hadn't been drinking, so he drove. On the way, my phone rang. It was a friend from Madrid. "Camila, we're going out for drinks tomorrow. Gabriel is bringing his new girlfriend to meet the group. The first time. I probably won't be back in time. Have fun." My voice came out tense. "Come on, just come. Gabriel insisted on inviting you. After all, you're his best friend." Watching the city lights blur through the rain-streaked window, I let out an empty laugh. "We're just friends. It doesn't matter if I'm there or not. Camila, I have to go." I hung up before she could say anything else. The calls kept coming. I ignored them all until, finally, my phone went silent. The car stopped.
Daniel turned to me.
"We're here, Camila." I didn't move. My gaze remained fixed on the city, the reflections of the lights blurred by the rain on the glass. My heart felt numb. "Daniel." My voice came out barely above a whisper. My reflection in the window looked distant and empty. And then, the words simply slipped out. "Do you want to come up?" Mateus didn't hesitate. His dark eyes locked onto mine for a moment, but he said nothing. He just opened the car door, stepped out, and walked around to the passenger side, opening it for me. My heart was pounding, not from excitement, but from uncertainty. Was I really doing this? We rode up in the elevator in silence. He leaned against the mirrored wall, watching me with that intense gaze he always had. I avoided looking directly at him, but I could feel his presence, his closeness. When the doors opened, I walked to my room and unlocked the door. As soon as we stepped inside, I heard the sound of the lock clicking shut behind us. The air was heavy. It wasn't desire. It wasn't love. It was the need to erase the past, to crush any lingering trace of Fernando. Mateus stepped closer and pulled me into a kiss. It wasn't gentle, but it wasn't rough either. It was intense, filled with something unresolved. I let myself go for a few seconds, but then the feeling of doing something wrong crept in. Fernando. No, he had no right to be in my thoughts. He had pushed me aside so many times, treated me like a convenient shadow, while living his life without a care for mine. But even knowing that, I couldn't go through with it. Mateus, he stopped immediately, his eyes searching my face. "You don't want this." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I shook my head, unable to say anything else. He sighed and stepped back, running a hand through his hair. "I knew it. You still haven't gotten over him." I swallowed hard. I wanted to deny it, but that would be a lie. "It's not that. I never finished the sentence." He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Bianca, you've always treated me as a second choice, you know that?" That hit me like a punch. "That's not true. Isn't it? You rejected me in high school because you were in love with him. And now, even after everything he's done, you're still here, frozen, thinking about him." My mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You know what's worse?" He continued, laughing bitterly. "I still came here. I still wanted to see you. Like an idiot." I lowered my head, feeling a tightness in my chest. "I'm sorry." He was silent for a moment, then sighed. "You don't have to apologize. You don't owe me anything." He picked up the jacket he had tossed onto the bed and put it on slowly. "If you ever want something real, look for me. But don't come to me as an escape." And with that, he left. I stood there, staring at the closed door, feeling ridiculous. I threw myself onto the bed, the weight of emptiness pressing down on me. But the worst part was knowing that Mateus was right. I was still trapped in Fernando, and I hated him for it. The next few days, I tried to keep myself distracted. Outings, dinners with friends, anything to keep my mind off him. But the thoughts always crept back. Until one random morning, my phone vibrated. Fernando. It wasn't a message. It was a call. The urge to reject it was strong, but in the end, I answered. "What?" My voice came out sharp. He was silent for a few seconds. "You're not coming back?" I let out a humorless laugh.
"No."
"You won't even hear what I have to say?" "Fernando, what do you want?"
He sighed.
"I want to see you." My chest tightened. I closed my eyes. For what? To pretend I'm just your friend while you show off someone else? Bianca, it's not like that. Oh no? Then what is it like? I messed up. Oh, that was new. How convenient. Now that I've left, you suddenly realize that? Meet me so we can talk. Just talk. Part of me wanted to say no and move on. But the other part still wanted answers. And that part won. Tomorrow. After lunch. I hung up before he could say anything else. The next day, there he was sitting at the cafe where we agreed to meet. He looked exactly the same. The same neatly styled hair, the same serious expression, the same eyes that had always made my heart race. But this time I didn't feel that rush. He smiled when he saw me, but there was something different in his expression. Attention. I sat down across from him. Go ahead. He studied me for a moment, then looked away. I ruined everything, didn't I? I crossed my arms. If you're looking for confirmation, yes. He let out a small, joyless laugh. I always thought I had time, that you would always be there. My stomach twisted. Well, you thought wrong. He nodded, staring at the cup of coffee in front of him. Are you with someone? Why does it matter? He pressed his lips together. Because I don't like the idea. I rolled my eyes. Oh, so now you care? I've always cared. I just didn't know how to show it. I let out a bitter laugh. You sure knew how to show that you didn't care. He ran a hand over his face, looking tired. Do you still love me? I swallowed hard. I don't know. The truth was, as much as it hurt, Fernando was still a part of me. But that didn't mean I wanted to go back. He looked me in the eyes. I can fix this. No, Fernando. You can't. The pain in his eyes almost made me waver. But then, I remembered the years I had spent as nothing more than a shadow in his life. I stood up. I deserve more. He sat there, watching me as if he wanted to say something but didn't know how. And then, for the first time, I left him behind. The feeling of leaving him behind was liberating. But it also left a bitter taste. Fernando had spent years treating me like a shadow, hiding me, discarding me whenever it suited him. And now, suddenly, he wanted to fix everything? As if a few words could erase every time I had felt invisible by his side?
No.
I could have simply moved on, forgotten him, and continued with my life. But that would have been too easy for him. Fernando needed to feel what it was like to be cast aside, ignored, discarded as if he had never mattered. And I was willing to make sure he understood. In the following days, I let him believe that I had truly moved on. I kept my distance, blocked his number, disappeared from his line of sight. Until one random night, I received an unexpected message. Mateus, I'm in Madrid. Want to go out? I smiled. It was the perfect moment. Mateus was never stupid. He knew I wasn't ready for anything serious. But he also knew that I needed a distraction, and he was willing to be that distraction. Me. Of course. Pick me up at 8 p.m. When we arrived at the restaurant, I knew we were drawing attention. Mateus had always had a strong presence, elegant, confident, and now, with me by his side, he looked even more imposing. And that's when I saw Fernando. He was sitting in a corner with his so-called new girlfriend, the one he had brought to introduce to his friends. She was laughing, leaning against him, clearly charmed. But his eyes were on me.
Perfect.
I held onto Mateus's arm and whispered something in his ear, making him chuckle softly. I didn't need to look at Fernando to know he was burning inside. The waiter led us to our table, and I made sure to choose a strategic spot, one where he could see me perfectly. Mateus noticed. What exactly are we doing here? He asked with an amused smile. What do you think? He chuckled. This isn't moving on, Bianca. I took a sip of my wine, pretending to be uninterested. Who said I'm trying to move on? He studied me for a moment before shaking his head. You're dangerous.
No.
I'm fair. And then, as if he had been waiting for the perfect moment, Fernando stood up. Pretending to head to the bathroom, he slowed down as he passed by our table. Bianca. I feigned surprise. Fernando? What a coincidence. His eyes narrowed. Who would have thought you'd come back to Madrid so soon? The world is small, isn't it? Silence stretched between us for a few seconds. Mateus watched the scene with amusement, but didn't intervene. Fernando glanced at him, then back at me. Are you doing well? I smiled. Never been better. His expression darkened. Good for you. And without waiting for a response, he walked away. But I knew he wouldn't leave it at that. In the following days, the messages started coming in. Fernando, can we talk? Fernando, I just want to understand what happened. Fernando, I need to see you. And then the final blow. Fernando. Mateus? Seriously? Oh, so now he was mad? I replied immediately. Me. Something wrong, Fernando? I thought my private life wasn't anyone's business. The blue check appeared, but no reply came. I smiled. The last straw came 2 weeks later. Fernando showed up at my building. He knocked on my door like he had any right to be there. When I opened it, he walked in without waiting for an invitation, his face full of frustration. What are you doing? I crossed my arms. I think I'm living my life. Why, Fernando? Are you surprised? He ran a hand through his hair, clearly irritated. You're with Mateus just to provoke me? I rolled my eyes. Oh, so now you care? When I was waiting for you, protecting you, accepting to be your secret, you didn't care. But now that I'm with someone who actually acknowledges me, it bothers you? He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. I messed up, Bianca. I know that. I stayed silent. But he hesitated. I don't want to lose you. The old Bianca would have melted at that moment, would have heard those words and believed them. But this Bianca? She laughed. You already lost me, Fernando. And then I delivered the final blow. I grabbed my phone, unlocked the screen, and right in front of him, opened a picture of Mateus holding my waist, both of us smiling on the balcony of a luxury hotel. Fernando went pale. You wouldn't do this. I stepped closer, pressing a finger against his chest. You made me wait 3 years to be acknowledged. I won't give you even 3 minutes of hope. Fernando looked at me as if I were a stranger. And then, with nothing left to say, he left. This time, he was the one who had been left behind. I watched the door close behind him and felt a cold satisfaction fill me. Fernando had finally tasted his own poison. But despite my apparent calm, I knew he wouldn't stop there. Fernando never handled losing control well. And losing me must have been eating away at his mind from the inside out. Days passed, and I savored each one as if I were relishing victory. I was seen with Mateus a few times, and each of those appearances seemed to hurt Fernando more than any insult ever could. I knew he was watching. I knew he saw every photo, every detail. And then he started showing up. First, it was at the cafe I used to frequent. Coincidence? Maybe. But when it happened again, twice in the same week, I realized it wasn't just chance. He was close, watching, trying to figure out if I had really left him behind. Then it got worse. I was at a networking event, surrounded by a few influential people who could be important for my career, when I felt a heavy gaze on me. I turned my head, and there he was, standing across the room, holding a glass of whiskey. Fernando was never much of a drinker. The fact that he was there, alone, staring at me like a predator watching its prey, was a clear warning. I kept acting normal, pretending he didn't exist. But at that moment, I realized my victory wasn't complete yet.
He still wanted me.
And if I didn't destroy him for good, he would never leave me alone. So I waited. It didn't take long for him to make a move. One night, late, I received a message from an unknown number. Can we talk? I smiled. Of course, it was him. I ignored the message. 5 minutes later, another one. Bianca, I just want to talk to you. Then another. I know you still love me. That made me laugh. Did he really think he could pull me back with empty words? Finally, the last one. I need to see you. It's important. I hesitated. Important? My curiosity won. Where? Our cafe. He still called it that. Our cafe. As if we were something. As if there was still in us. But I went. Not because I wanted to hear his excuses, but because I wanted to make sure he tasted the bitter taste of defeat one last time.
He was already there when I arrived.
Dressed in a casual yet well-fitted suit, but his face showed clear signs of sleepless nights. His dark circles were deep, and his expression was far from calm. I didn't sit.
Speak.
He looked at me for a few seconds before intertwining his fingers on the table. Bianca, I want to try again. The urge to laugh was immediate. You do? That's interesting. Because I don't. He closed his eyes for a second, as if trying to contain his frustration. I was an idiot. I let my fear, my image, all of that get in the way of what really mattered. You were always there, and I raised my hand. Fernando, stop. This is pathetic. He tensed. Pathetic?
Yes.
Pathetic. You're here, telling me all of this now after I left you. After I finally took control of my life. This isn't regret. It's ego. You can't stand the fact that I threw you away. He took a deep breath, his fists clenched. I love you.
No.
You had me for 3 years and chose to hide me. Chose to pretend I didn't exist when I needed you most. That's not love, Fernando. That's selfishness. The silence between us stretched for a few seconds. Then, he let out a dry laugh. Are you seeing Mateus out of revenge? I'm seeing whoever I want. Do you think he's better than me? I crossed my arms and stared at him. Mateus may have never been my first choice, but at least he never made me feel like I was the last. The words hit Fernando like a punch. He looked away, clenched his jaw, and took a deep breath. And then he asked the question I knew was coming. If I had chosen you from the beginning, would we still be together? I smiled. If you had chosen me, I would have never discovered my own worth. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave. Bianca, you lost, Fernando. Accept it. And then I walked away. But Fernando didn't accept it. Days later, I started receiving anonymous calls. At first, spaced out. Then constant. Then worse. Mateus called me one night, his voice filled with anger. Fernando showed up at my office. My muscles tensed.
What? Yeah.
He showed up out of nowhere, started insinuating that you still wanted him, that all of this was just a game, that he knows you still think about him. My blood boiled. What did you do? I asked if he wanted me to call security, or if he preferred to leave on his own. He left, but it was clear this isn't over. I clenched my teeth. Fernando wasn't going to stop. He couldn't stand the idea that I had won. But I was tired. So I did the one thing he never expected me to do. I picked up my phone and called. Not Fernando, but his new girlfriend. The number wasn't hard to find. A little digging on social media, paying attention to comments, and there was... When she answered, her voice was hesitant. Hello? Hi, Mariana. Silence. Who is this? I smiled. I'm Bianca. You know who I am, don't you? More silence. I think so.
Good.
I need to tell you something about Fernando. And then I told her everything. I talked about the years in hiding, the lies, the messages, his desperate attempts to get me back. And I ended with one final warning. If you don't leave now, you'll be the next. The silence on the other end was enough for me to know I had won. 2 days later, Fernando sent me one last email. Thank you. You took everything from me. I smiled as I read it, and deleted the message without replying.
Now, he was truly destroyed.
Time passed, and the storm Fernando tried to create around me finally dissipated. But not without scars. Not without marks. In the months following that last message, he disappeared completely. No more calls, no more messages, no more accidental encounters. Nothing. It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. And that was exactly how it was supposed to be. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that Mariana left him the day after our conversation. She threw all his clothes out of the apartment window and changed the locks. Fernando tried to fix the situation, but Mariana had already seen the truth. And more than that, she told everyone. The reputation he valued so much began to crumble. The friends who once laughed at his jokes and pretended not to see his cowardice started to distance themselves. The women who once admired him began to see a desperate and pathetic man. If Fernando thought I was disposable, fate made sure to show that he was the one who had no worth at all. The last thing I heard about him was that he had quit his job and moved to another city. But what really happened to him? I don't know. And I don't care. Mateus and I never truly became a couple. I knew that from the start, and so did he. What we had was an intense connection, and a bond that helped me get through all of this without falling apart. But it wasn't love. It never was. One evening, after a pleasant dinner and a few glasses of wine, he held my hand and smiled. You know this isn't going to last, right? I squeezed his hand back and smiled.
Yes. And that was it.
A goodbye without pain, without regrets. He moved on with his life, and I moved on with mine. Today, when I think of him, I feel no bitterness, only gratitude. Mateus was the push I needed to climb out of the abyss where Fernando had left me. And for that, I will always respect him. Now, as for me, I became the woman Fernando never wanted me to be. Independent, confident. Where I once settled for being a shadow, now I shined with my own light. I built my career, expanded my network, and finally achieved the stability I had always dreamed of. My name started gaining recognition in my professional field, and people no longer saw me as Fernando's ex, but as Bianca, the woman who would never again accept being a secret. And, ironically, That was exactly what led to one final surprise. One day, while having coffee in a busy restaurant, I heard someone call my name. Bianca. I looked up and found myself staring at a face I hadn't seen in years. Not Fernando. Daniel. The childhood friend who had once appeared in Barcelona, who had awakened something in me back then, but who, by a twist of fate, hadn't had a place in my life at that moment. He still looked impeccable, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, with that gaze that always seemed to see right through me. It's been a long time. I smiled.
Yeah, it has.
We talked for a long time. No rush, no expectations. I learned that he was now an important name in the business world, that he traveled frequently but had finally decided to settle down. And in that moment, something happened. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel that suffocating fear of being left behind. I just felt calm. Because, for the first time in my life, I knew I didn't need anyone to be complete. If Daniel wanted to be part of my life, great. But if he didn't, it wouldn't make a difference. We went out that night. He took me to dinner, made me laugh, and when we said goodbye, he looked me in the eyes in a way no one else ever had. I don't know when exactly you became this woman, but I like it. And for the first time, I believed it.
Fernando?
Fernando no longer existed to me. I left him where he had always belonged in the past.